Sports Talk Chicago. Here for Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the Bears beat reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times, and he's covered Chicago sports for 30 plus years. Please welcome Mark Potash to the program. Mark, great to have you on. How are you?
Thanks, John. I'm doing great. Week one, it's always everything sounds great. So this is sometimes for the when you cover the Bears is the best time of year.
What do you make of the Bears preseason to start?
I mean, it was okay. I mean, it doesn't tell you anything. I'm not big on preseason, and the NFL isn't big on preseason. So they've set it up where it's not nearly the indicator it used to be. Not that it ever was a great indicator. So it didn't make me think that they would be any better or worse than I thought they would be. When they hired a new GM and coach and went through the draft and free agency and all that. So not that there were. Let's put it this way: all the little things, the very subtle things, go right down to Justin Fields' footwork. That's something you really can't see the benefit of in preseason, but that actually might be an improvement of his that makes him a better quarterback. There are a couple of plays where they actually got receivers open, which I think is the biggest key to an offense. That's my biggest complaint about the Nagy era is that he did not create what was called the conflict of assignment on defenses that got players open. Only against the Lions. Let's put it that way. Then there were guys. You literally saw the confusion on the defense, but that was the Lions and Matt Patricia. So anyway, going back to the original point, I think was there wasn't anything. There were certain things I saw in the preseason that were good, but not there. It was not telltale. So I guess what I'm saying is anything can happen once the season starts. They could be a surprise team Sunday and really look like a much better team than we thought. Or the 49ers, a team that, a Super Bowl quality team with a new quarterback could just stomp them and put everybody kind of back in their place as far as the optimism about the Bears. It really could go either way.
Well, you mentioned Justin Fields, at least. You've seen some sort of improvement with his footwork. I know he's been working on his arm motion as well. Do you think that translates to some more success for him this year?
Well, I'll be honest. I am not a film watcher, so I read these things and I look for them and stuff like that. I just don't know how much of it. I think it's more. I think that's more about maybe that facilitating an improvement more in the scheme. I'm bigger on that. If there's anything, if there's a narrative I will buy, at least for now, it's that Getsy's scheme will create better offense. Will make a better offense with lesser talent. There's no Allen Robinson. There's no Jimmy Graham here. There's no Jason Peters at left tackle. There's a fifth-round rookie. I mean, I kind of made the point today in my story in the paper that this is actually a lesser offense, man for man, pound for pound, than the one that faced the 49ers last year. And so it's all on, they're betting on the scheme. They're betting on just being a better coach team. Running, the Bears weren't a bad running team, but they were never in rhythm. They never did it correctly. They were always out of sync, it seemed like. And so just little things like that. And coming from Green Bay, you kind of expect that. The Packers, you don't really know them as a running team, but if you look at the numbers, they're a very good running team. They have two running backs always. They're very productive. They run well on first down. They're always either in 2nd and 2 or 3rd and 3 or something. And the running game is a big part of Aaron Rodgers' success. So I think they're hoping that those non-Rodgers factors, protection, running game, receivers being open, will make the Bears offense and make Justin Fields a better quarterback than he was under Matt Nagy. I think that's what this season is all about, because they certainly didn't fortify their offense with all these great receivers who are going to automatically, and weapons who are automatically going to make even a mediocre quarterback better. So in a way, it's a good test for Fields. It'll force him to be good.
Do you think that's a good idea, though? I mean, other teams would say, hey, we need to develop a quarterback and have some good weapons around him. Instead, they're betting on the scheme. Do you think that's a smart bet?
Well, if Justin Fields is still standing in Week 17, I would say yes. If he gets crushed and he doesn't develop, no. But I'll be honest. I really don't know how to answer that question, because I kind of like the fact that they needed an offense and they went defense in the draft, only because the two guys they took where you would have wanted a receiver both look like the real deal. Now, we don't know if Brisker and Gordon will be as good as they've looked, but relative to guys, and I'm talking about even guys like Eddie Jackson and Adrian Amos, guys who started in the secondary as rookies, they look as good or better than those guys at this point. So my point is, it's not like they're going to be guys who are leaning on having Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks on their defense. They look like they're actual difference makers and playmakers. So based on that, I like it, but only if it works. Only if the Getsy thing works. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if this guy gets crushed, I'm not going to argue that that's not that. I'm not going to argue that Ryan Poles, set him up to fail. So I'm on the fence on that. I just don't know enough about it to really give you a definitive answer. I would lean. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt as a new regime, which I think is fair. You know, we crushed them when they were bad, and they made the changes we all wanted. Now let's see if they're right.
Who's going to be Justin Fields' most valuable asset on offense?
Well, I think statistically it'll probably be David Montgomery because I just think they need to have a running game, and I think they know they need to have a running game. I think the Herbert Montgomery tandem probably more exactly. As far as the offense, I mean, he could lean on. I like you know I'm assuming Mooney will be double covered all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking Cole Kmet and Equanimeous St. Brown. St. Brown seems like a guy that he already has kind of leaned on and kind of gotten chemistry with. And is an interesting guy coming from Green Bay where he didn't do as well. And you figure, well, if a guy doesn't do as well, if you don't succeed in Green Bay with that quarterback and that offense, how good can you be? But I don't know. Jimmy Graham actually was more productive in the Bears offense, I think, than he was in the Packers. So, I mean, it's not always that way. So I think the tight end and one receiver, it could end up being Pringle because we just haven't seen him. But based on what we've seen so far, I think it's St. Brown as a guy who will be a target. And again, that's assuming that Mooney gets all the attention from defenses. And I'm not sure if he'll have quite the year that people are expecting, but I'm not ruling out the fact that he becomes, takes it to another level. I'm just not betting on that. So when you talk about targets, I'd say the running game, and then guys you really maybe who haven't been in that position before. Kmet, who obviously has potential, and St. Brown right now, but again, it could be anybody. It could be N'Keal Harry when he comes back. Who knows?
Is Mooney a number one wide receiver? There's been a lot of debate.
Well, that's an interesting question. That we're going to find that out because right now, it's interesting. He's a productive player in a really bad offense. I mean, this was one of no. I wrote about this also that I hate to rag on Matt Nagy, but this was the most overtly bad offense I've seen, or the most obvious disappointing thing relative to what somebody was charged to do, which is make an offense and develop a quarterback. I've never seen, with no offense to Matt Nagy, I've never seen somebody fail at that so clearly. So when you have Mooney, you say, well, Mooney was productive in a bad offense. How good would he be like on the Chiefs or something? He'd be that guy wide open in the end zone while Patrick Mahomes is running around, right? I mean, in theory, in this offense, and that's kind of another point, not to get off track, is will Justin Fields be able to find the open man late? I think that's a huge key in the NFL these days with these quarterbacks running around, and you have to have an offense that's kind of designed to do that. So anyway, so Mooney, I mean, yeah, everyone's expecting him to take that next level and be a 100-yard a game receiver, and he could do that. I just think the way the Bears offense is comprised right now, it's going to be really tough for him to do that unless they develop very quickly. And teams have to cover Equanimeous St. Brown and David Montgomery coming out of the backfield and Cole Kmet. And then he will. But right now, I'd say certainly he has the potential, but I'm not. It's not, to me, it's not an automatic. But I like Mooney. I love Mooney. I love the fact that he just has an aptitude for the game. He understands the nuances of his position and the offense. I think he's the real deal. I don't think he's just a fifth-round pick who's overachieved. I think he's fifth, fourth. I can't remember. But anyway, I think he's a mid-round pick who's overachieving. No, I think he's the real deal because he has all the, he's good. He's good catching a short pass and taking it long. He's good going deep. He's very versatile. He understands the position, like I said. And I think he's got potential to be great. But in the current state of the Bears offense, I can't guarantee that he will be the guy who makes the big step. It'll have to be somebody else, I think, before him. Because defenses are they know him now. I mean, that he's going to get a lot of attention.
Mark Potash here on Sports Talk Chicago. Mark, what have you made of the new regime overall? Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus coming in.
Well, that's interesting too because I like them, but I like the new regime at this point in 2015 when you had the pace the Pace Fox May December romance that looked like we all wanted it. That looked like exactly what a young GM needed was a veteran coach and I was enamored with him at the same time. I will say I do see things in Poles that I like. That I think he's a forward-thinking guy. I think he's a 21st century guy. I just like little things he did, like hiring an assistant GM. I think that's a really good move that shows that he has that he knows he can't do it all. And even little things like, there was this thing I thought was interesting. It kind of got overlooked. Like when they were evaluating players in the draft, he had all his he pulled all his scouts individually to avoid groupthink. I just like that thinking that he seems like a smart. He seems like he learned well in Kansas City and learned some lessons there. I like the way he handled the Roquan Smith situation. I think it was a difficult situation. It was acrimonious, and yet, especially with a player not having an agent. And I think he's done. I think he did very well. He had a strong hand and he played it well. He didn't fold when he didn't have to. And so little things like that. But again, I always say this. I see that those are indicators to me that will be better than Pace, and those are indicators to me that if he does have success, he will be able to sustain it where Pace could not. But he's got to get the quarterback. If he doesn't get the quarterback right, he will fail. I mean, and that's so what I'm saying is he's got a lot of little things I see when you ask me how do I like him. I do like him. I do like what he does. But if you don't get the quarterback right, you're probably not going to succeed. So it all comes down to that.
What do you see in Justin Fields? I mean, do you think at this point he will get the quarterback right? Is Justin Fields going to be that guy for the Bears?
Well, we don't know. We know he has the talent to do it, and I think in a good offense, I think he will do it. But the thing we talked about Mitch Trubisky was, does he have the instinct for the position? And he didn't. And he didn't appear to. And now they're saying, well, that might have been just Matt Nagy taking it all out of him. Even Trubisky in interviews has kind of hinted at that he was kind of, held back or whatever from really being the quarterback he could be. So that's the key. Does he have an instinct for the position? At Ohio State, he certainly showed that potential much more than Trubisky did at North Carolina. So he's got that potential. But in Chicago, we've seen so many bad offenses and so many underachieving quarterbacks that it's just. I'll be honest, I'm a victim of that, and it's too hard for me to predict. Oh yeah, he's going to be it. I got to see it to believe it. So, but I'm saying the potential is definitely there. And again, it comes down to, I hate to just harp on one little thing, but will he find in this offense? Will he find the open man late? I think like I said, I think that's a huge thing. And when you see that happen, then because there are times you saw, and you've seen it, where Trubisky runs around, gets out of the pocket, and then throws into coverage as if it was the first read. I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about as far as quarterback intuition and just being able to play the position. Is can he run around and keep his head in the game and keep his wits about him and find that open guy and even anticipate where he's going to be. I think that's to me that's a big key. That's a big key as far as your question about what do I think about Justin Fields? Will he be successful? I'll say yes. He shows the instinct for the position, but can he actually execute it in a good offense? And that's what we're going to see. So yeah, I think he's got a real good chance. Let's put it that way. But they've got to have right now. They've got to support him to give him a chance to be the quarterback who puts a team on his shoulders, like you see all these great ones, and do it. So he can get to that level, but I don't think he's at that level yet. But I think he can get there.
Do you think next year with the big cap space that could also play a role in helping him develop more?
Oh, absolutely. That's what this season is all about. I've always said the clock doesn't start on Ryan Poles until 2023, and he earned that by clearing house where Pace did not. Pace at this point had Antrell Roll and Eddie Royal and players like that to kind of, fortify their offense and defense. I think, and he had Cutler. I mean, so yeah, it's all about 2023, and I think that's what this is set up to be: is can you get an offense on the ground, and then with all this cap space now, if you get breakout players, the cap space isn't just for free agents or other teams free. The cap space was for your own. Theoretically, if Darnell Mooney has a great year, or David Montgomery, whoever they want to get, they'll have the money to keep them too. So you're not going to lose people. You're not going to lose people you don't want to lose, and you'll be able to gain. So yeah, to answer your question, absolutely, that's what this whole thing is designed is for. Is for the possibility that Fields will not be great, will be good, but good enough where you get them some weapons like other teams have done, and then you can really take off. So this is really a setup year, a rebuild, whatever foundation year, whatever. I always say this is the cleanest rebuild the Bears have had since the Ditka era, since the Jim Finks era, and I think that's their best chance to do it because you don't have Cutler in the way. When you have Cutler, you always think in the back of your head at least you should be a playoff team. They don't have that expectation this year. They might be in this division. I always say never underestimate the mediocrity of the NFL. 9-8 could get you in. The Bears could be a playoff team, but there's no expectation. And I think that's the big key. They don't have anybody holding back. The only surprise is Robert Quinn. He's the only guy on their team right now that likely will not be a part of their next playoff team. And I'm surprised that he's still here, but he's the only one. There were like 5 or 6 in previous, with Emery, with Pace, and you don't have that. So anyway, the clean rebuild, I think, is probably the biggest factor for the Bears as it relates to 2023 and saying, and asking for patience. Let's put it that way.
So then how do you plan on evaluating this season? I mean, could even 3-14 mean, you know what, let's wait till next year? I mean, is there a certain standard that you're looking at still for this season, despite not many expectations?
Yeah, my standards, I mean, probably not the same as I'm probably out of step Charlie, but my expectations are very minimal. I want to see Justin Fields standing at the end of the year. I want to see him better in the second half than he was in the first half. And frankly, I want the Bears to have their best chance to get him his Jamar Chase, which is like a 5th pick overall. So if they go 5-12 or whatever, the best scenario, it's like teams in 98. I always go back to 98 when the Bears started 0 or 97 when the Bears started 0-7 and were in line to have the first pick of the draft, a shot at Peyton Manning, and won enough games to get Curtis Enos. And what would have been better for the Bears that year? The best thing for the Bears that year would have been to go 2-12, 2-14, and get Peyton Manning, right? Well, I would argue the best thing for the Bears this year might be to go, not be horrible, but develop a quarterback and still, like the Bengals did, develop a quarterback and still finish, in the top 5 in the draft and get that help. That's not the worst scenario. That you could argue that's the best scenario. If you're going to go 8-8. And not make the playoffs, or 8-9, whatever, that might not be better. So my expectations are very minimal. I think it's all about the quarterback, and because his defense will be, middle of the pack, maybe better than that with Roquan back. So they'll be fine there. I don't think that's a problem. So I guess my long-winded answer is I very, very simple expectations. It all revolves around Fields being better at the end than he was at the beginning and still standing. And whatever the record is, because it can be better to be worse, right? If that makes sense.
Mark Potash still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Mark, a few more questions before we finish up. First off, why did Mark Buehrle have the perfect baseball career?
Well, I love Mark Buehrle, and that was born out of the Hall of Fame discussion a few years ago. And the guy doesn't need the Hall of Fame because, like I said, he had the perfect career. Well, I've listed, I think you're referring to my list of the 20 reasons why he did. And I think one of the key ones is he was never like a top pick he never had any pressure on him. He was whatever round he was, he was a surprise that he made it. He had a great career. I could read off the list or whatever, but yeah, I just think he did. I just think he had the career that when, you always want to be a Major League Baseball player when you're growing up. That's everybody's dream. And I don't want to be, maybe it's my own personality, I don't want to be that guy who's always has that high expectations, always being great. I want to be the guy who has, humble expectations and overachieves. I'd rather set the bar low. That probably says more about me than anybody needs to know. But anyway, I just admire Buehrle because of the way he was out of the limelight. He was efficient. He was fan friendly in a lot of ways. He was good, and also he did it his way. In the off seasons, he was hunting and fishing. He didn't, he lived his life, and even in retirement, he's a beloved White Sox pitcher. When he goes to Comiskey Park, or when he goes to Guaranteed Rate Field, I guess, whatever it is now. Sorry. Showing my age here, but he is revered, but yet he lives a simple life he lives the life he wants to live, and was out of, he's not on Fox News or whatever, the NBC Sports. He's not doing the post game show. He doesn't need that. So it's really, he had the great career, and I just really I really admire the way. I didn't articulate that very well. Just read the 20 reasons. They give you a much better sample of it. Like, for instance, well, here's one thing, he wasn't a Blazer. He didn't throw 95, but yet he still had great moments. He had a perfect game. He had a no-hitter. He won a World Series. He did all the things that the great pitchers do. without that kind of stuff. That's another thing. He's just very relatable, I guess. That's probably the answer. To me, Mark Buehrle is the most relatable athlete, one of the most relatable athletes we've had in Chicago, because any of us could kind of be him. But there's only one Mark Buehrle, and that's what makes it. That's my answer. Sorry, it took 5 minutes to get to the answer, but I got there.
Were you there for the perfect game or the no-hitter? Like, what's the best start that you've covered from him?
I don't think I covered a Mark Buehrle start because I wasn't covering the Sox until, well, maybe I can't remember, but I wasn't really covering the Sox like a backup guy until after he was gone. Okay. So I can't really, so I really didn't do that. And I don't know him personally. I just know he was very good. Like, and I'm talking to Joe Colley, who covered him, like he mentioned, like one of the 20 reasons was Mark Buehrle would talk pregame on the day he pitched. Which most pitchers don't do. He was such a cool guy. I mean, he just, he wasn't, nothing bothered him. He wasn't, he was very 20th century, almost probably 19th century as far as an athlete. So no, I really don't have any personal, and that's it. It's not personal. It's not like he was my buddy. This is a very objective view. My 20 reasons why he had the perfect baseball career is a very objective view, mostly as a fan, more than anything else, and why he did. I just always feel, I always admire him, and Konerko's kind of the same way. Konerko is very close to him, and I could do one for him as well. Konerko, who's very respected, not a Hall of Famer, Hall of Very Good, first ballot Hall of Very Good. They both are, and to be honest, like Buehrle wouldn't be in my Hall of Fame. My Hall of Fame would be much more exclusive than most people, so he wouldn't be it. And neither would Konerko, but they are both very admirable athletes. It's just a shame they didn't win more than they did in Chicago, but that's another tale.
Well, I appreciate the Hall of Fame comment, at least. I feel like the Hall of Fame today is too inclusive, rather. Too many people are getting in that shouldn't be.
Absolutely. Well, you know how it is. I always say Rabbit Moranville was the guy who started it all. He was the first. If you look back at the history, as soon as here's what happens, and it's natural. You put Ron Santo in, then what about Ken Boyer? Ken Boyer was an MVP. Then you put Ken Boyer in, who was just almost as good. It just widens. I'm not sure what the statistical term is, but it just widens how many people can get the candidates, the pool. It widens the pool every time. And naturally, that's going to happen. And we could talk. This is a passion of mine, the Hall of Fame, because I would love to recast the Hall of Fame and do it from all over. But knowing what we know, and just make it much more exclusive for guys who, to me, you have to be a Hall of Famer, you have to have had Hall of Fame seasons. Accumulating 17-win seasons in the old days, like Don Sutton or whatever, that doesn't do it for me. You have to have Sandy Koufax. It's fame. Fame is the key. You have to have seasons like Sandy Koufax or careers like Walter Johnson, and to me, that's what it's all about. And to me, what happened is they started picking the Hall of Fame every season. The very first Hall of Fame was literally for 40 seasons or 35 seasons. So that was the best class of all time, right? You had Walter Johnson and Babe Ruth and Christy Mathewson or whatever, Honus Wagner. It was the best. And then when you start, if you only pick the Hall of Fame every 4 years, it would be a much different Hall of Fame, because then you wouldn't have, like I said, Rabbit Moranville was the guy who all of a sudden, once he gets in, well, that leads, Bill Mazeroski's a Hall of Famer then. If he is, Rabbit Moranville, that just widened the pool. So wasn't ready for that discussion. We should talk about that. If you're passionate, we should do a whole podcast on that, John, because that's a passion of mine. And not that I don't have a problem with people liking the Hall of Fame as it is. That's fine. Mine would just be different. Mine would be for players who, like I said, were Hall of Famers when you watch Willie Mays, you knew he was a Hall of Famer. When you watch Ron Santo, did you know he was a Hall of Famer? And I love Ron Santo. I would never disparage him, but frankly, he wouldn't be in my Hall of Fame. But anyway, yeah, that's that is I don't know about a passion of mine, but I'm certainly have a lot of opinions, and that's one that always comes up only because every year somebody else gets in that leads to 10 more people being eligible, and then and then you've got basically I say my point, there should actually be a Hall of Very Good. I would love, if I was retired, I would actually build an edifice, a building that would be the Hall of Very Good, and you'd have some great players in it. You should try doing that if you're into the Hall of Fame debates. Try doing that. Guys who not borderline, guys who are definitely not Hall of Famers, but are Hall of Very Gooders, I guess you would say. That's bad English, but anyway, But anyway, so yeah, so that's how you try and do that. Make an actual. There would be some guys who would probably be in between. They'd be too good for the Hall of Very Good, but not good enough for the Hall of Fame. It'd be weird. You have to a whole nother hall. It's a crazy debate, but it's a lot of fun if you're a baseball fan, to do that. But anyway, the point being, I guess I agree with you, is that I think the Hall of Fame should be much more exclusive than it is, and naturally by by voting every year, I think that's what's watered it down. If you did it, my serious, I've joked about a lot of it, but my serious change would have been, and at one point they were doing it every other year, and then he went to every year. It would be to pick it every 4 or 5 years, and then the pool. Then it'd be to me, it would be a lot more exclusive than it is.
Well, I suggest when the Hall of Fame voting comes up, we do another podcast just about the Hall of Fame because
I'll be able to organize my thoughts better, John. You caught me by surprise, but as you can tell, I have a big interest in that. So so anyway, I'll be more prepared the next time. I hope it made some sense.
Mark, thank you so much for joining me, though. Great insights on the Bears and the Hall of Fame, and looking forward to reading your coverage in the Sun Times this season for sure.
Thanks, John. I love doing your show, and thanks for having me.